Okay, so in the second part, I'm going to show you how to attach your tie and finish the construction of your apron. So I have my front panel sewed to my back panel with the ruffles sewn on. And you can see, hopefully across the front here, and I'll put another one in so you can understand what I'm doing. I'm marking the stitch line with pins. I've got my back panel lined up and my front panel lined up, and I'm just poking some pins through the front panel so that I can see on the back panel where my stitch line is going to be, so that I can pin my tie in the right spot. So for your tie, you're going to start working from the center, and this part seems really upside down until you flip it over, and then it makes sense. I did this tie before I had worked out all of the construction in my head, and so I have a seam right in the center, so that's my center line. On the second one that I did, I don't have the piece here, but rather than stitching it in the middle, I have seams on either side instead. So I cut the second piece of the tie in half and joined them on the ends instead of in the middle, so I wouldn't have a seam right in the middle of my apron. So to attach your tie, you're going to sew right sides together, and you're going to be stitching through all the layers of fabric. And the reason why you need to know where your stitch line is going to be is because you really want to catch that top layer of the ruffle when you sew this this step. So I'm just using these pins as a reference point for my stitch line, which is right at that press mark that you made at the 1/4 inch mark. So I'm going to pin that on, line it up with the next one. Working from the center is important because it makes your project nice and even. That's a quilting trick. You work from the center as much as you possibly can. Okay, so this is the first step to attaching your tie. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this on. Take my ruffle foot off. Isn't that simple for that big scary looking thing? Now, one point that I really want to make with this project is that you need to make sure that your ruffles are out of the way as much as you possibly can. So I'm just double checking as I lay my apron down to start this part of the process to make sure that the ruffles are out of the way. And I'm just going to stitch right along that fold mark. You might have to go kind of slow because you've got a lot of layers of fabric that you're dealing with here. Don't stitch over your pins. Okay, so you can see right now that your tie is stitched right sides together, upside down, right along your press mark. So what you're going to do next is fold it over and cover, see that? Cover the top layer of that ruffle and then pin. I should have showed you here. Let me show you. Look at, I bent that pin. Here's the center mark. Remember in the instructions I said to finger press the center of both your tie and your apron, because you want to make sure that they're meeting up and even, because that's another reference point that you'll use. So make sure when you pin it that that center mark is aligned. Now you're just going to pin out from the center, and you're going to sew right along that same stitch mark. Now at this point on your tie, you've secured the back of the tie, and so all you're doing is making sure that the front looks nice. You've covered up all your stitch lines from that top ruffle as well as the raw edge, and you're just making sure that when you stitch it, it looks nice. However, when you get to the side, you want to make sure that your two pieces of the back and front of the tie meet up really nicely. Because if you miss that spot, your tie is going to have some raw edges that will fray over time. So then you just continue pinning. Make sure all your edges meet up real nicely. And the way that I've been finishing these is starting my stitch maybe about like here, so that it's not right on the front of the apron. Stitch along the front, continue around, stitch all the way around, make sure everything comes together nicely, and then top stitching along the top of your tie all the way around, until you come back to your starting point. And then you have a finished product. So I'll post the finished picture of this one in a few minutes when it's done. And there you have an apron.